There's a principle that once I understood it and applied it correctly, I'm not shitting you, my income doubled damn near overnight. And then I applied it some years later, and at that time I had a $91,344 month. What I'm talking about today is called the mirror principle, and it's backed by both ancient mysticism as well as modern psychology. And if you apply what I'm about to share here today, your results in your life and your work will change and improve faster than you ever thought possible. So first things first, there's one big problem, and it's this. Most people are trying to change their external results and circumstances without ever changing their internal state. They want more money, but they feel broke and scarce inside. They want success, but they can't stop seeing themselves as a failure or doubting themselves. They want to level up and become this new version of themselves that they know they could be deep down. But guess what? They don't, because they're still carrying the identity and all the baggage and all the bullshit of who they used to be. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Well, maybe that's not completely true. They know nothing is changing, but they don't quite know why. And today, what I'm talking about, the mirror principle, explains exactly why this doesn't work and why they're not getting what they want. And more importantly, it teaches us exactly how to create the results in our life that we actually want. Hey family, welcome back. Or if you're new here, I'm Chris. I made $1 million in my business by the time I was 25. And now I'm documenting what it really takes, like the actual process, to make $1 million per year doing what you love and how to manifest your dream life. So if you want to become the high confidence, high vibration, high performing, and high income version of yourself, so you can stop playing small and start winning at the level you know you're capable of, do me a favor and subscribe. So we're going to talk really quickly. What is the mirror principle? Well, to make this super simple, I'm just going to draw this little illustration here of a person looking themselves in the mirror. Because the mirror principle is very simple, but it's profound. Your reality is a direct reflection of your internal state. So I first want to break this down from a more mystical perspective, and then I'm going to ground it in proven and modern psychological principles for you. There's an ancient hermetic principle called the law of correspondence, and it states, as within, so without, as above, so below. What this means is that your outer world, your circumstances, your relationship, your bank account, your income, your opportunities, is always mirroring back to you what's happening inside of yourself. Your beliefs, your self-image or identity, your emotional state, your assumptions, beliefs, convictions about yourself and reality, all of that gets reflected back to you as your life experience and as your results. Neville Goddard taught this when he said, the world is just you or yourself pushed out. So that's a more mystical approach or idea, but let's talk about a psychological perspective for those of you who are doubters. Modern psychology calls this the self-fulfilling prophecy, or the confirmation bias, combined with another term called behavioral consistency, which means your self-concept, so the way that you see yourself and your internal world, determines your behavior. Your behavior then determines your results, and then your results then reinforce your self-image or self-concept. It's this vicious feedback loop. So example, if you see yourself as someone who struggles with money, you'll behave in ways that create money struggles. You'll avoid opportunities, make poor financial decisions, and then unconsciously sabotage your success. And then when you actually struggle with money again, which you're going to, you'll be like, see, I told you I'm bad with money. Come on. But here's the key. The mirror doesn't lie, right? Mirror doesn't lie. But it also doesn't lead. It's not in charge. In fact, the mirror's job is to reflect you back to yourself. It doesn't create your circumstances. You create your circumstances because the mirror is just showing you the reflection of what you are projecting. So if you don't like what you see in the mirror, you can't change the reflection. You can't reach through a mirror and comb your hair. You have to pick up the fucking brush or the comb and comb it yourself. To make this simple, in other words, you have to change what's being reflected by changing your internal state. Now, I'm going to tell you the story of how I use this on 2 separate occasions to make a shit ton of money, okay? So the first story is my drug charge story. So the drug charge story was the first time that I consciously applied this principle, like I chose to apply it. I was 18 years old and I was facing charges for drug possession. Word to the wise, if you're watching this, don't smoke weed in your car and then go drive around. It's not a good idea. So I was looking at losing my license. I was looking at losing my job. I had massive lawyer fees that I couldn't afford. And honestly, I felt like my entire future was fucked. It was a really bad situation. Even though looking back, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was at the time. I needed money fast, like $10,000 a month just to survive, pay my legal fees, and support myself. And at the time, I was working at a car dealership. So I'm going to draw this little car. And as you guys who watch my videos know, I am just the best artist ever. So here's this little car. It's so good. So now here's the thing. I'm working at this car dealership and I find myself in this situation, let's say, and most people in this situation would probably have crumbled under the pressure and began to spiral even more and make things worse. I've done that in different times of my life, but this situation was not one of those times. Other people probably would have felt defeated. They would have felt desperate. They would have felt like a fuck up. And don't get me wrong, I felt some of those things temporarily, but I snapped out of it. And guess what? If those people felt that way, based on the mirror principle, what would reality have reflected back? Well, customers probably would have sensed their desperation. Managers would have given them shit and seen them as unreliable. And then their results, the money they made that month, would have reflected their internal state. But I was lucky enough to discover the mirror principle. Even if I didn't fully understand it back then, I didn't really have a fucking choice. It sounded cool, and I was like, I'm going to do this thing. So before I walked into the dealership every single day, I would sit in my car and consciously shift and cultivate a new internal state. I would bump Man of the Year by Logic, Straight to the Bank by 50 Cent, On to the Next One and You Don't Know by Jay-Z, and Duffel Bag Boy by Play a Circle and Lil Wayne. If you know those songs, let me know in the comments. They fucking are awesome. So I would sit in my car, driving to work in the parking lot, and I would get myself in this absolute gangster mindset. I felt like I'm going to fucking manhandle today, and I'm going to make it give me what I want. So instead of cowering to the drug charges and the reality of my situation, I decided I was going to make the situation my bitch. I started telling my coworkers, look, and they didn't really even know what was going on, to be honest, but I started telling them, I'm going to sell over 20 cars this month, and I'm going to become the top salesperson here. They didn't believe that I would do it. In fact, they actively tried to talk me out of going after this. And of course, if you know me, I'm like, fuck that, watch me. In the words of Jay-Z, put me anywhere on God's green earth and I'll triple my worth, motherfuckers. And that was definitely my motto at the time. I was going to kick ass and take names. I had to. My back was against the wall. Not someday, not after I proved myself, not after someone gave me permission, right now. So I started to feel what it would feel like to be the guy that closes every deal. The guy that customers immediately trust. The guy that other salespeople look up to and wonder, how the fuck is he doing that? I adjusted my posture, how I carried myself. I fucking dressed different. I changed my energy. I shifted my identity into this top salesperson. And then I walked through the doors and did my job as that person. And here's what happened. It was crazy. So first things first, I sold 23 and a half cars. So 23 sales and a half deal that month. I made $12,000 in commissions. And overnight, damn near, I became the top dog at the dealership. I was outselling guys who had worked there for years. The external reality, my sales, my income, my reputation was perfectly mirroring my new internal state. I wasn't faking confidence. I wasn't pretending to be successful. I genuinely shifted who I was being on the inside and my internal state, and the outside world had no choice, because of the mirror principle, but to reflect it back to me. So that's story one. Now let's talk about story two, which is me as a real estate agent. Just going to draw a little thing there. And then for this, I'll draw a cute little house, which I do feel I'm good at drawing just because it's just so simple. Cute little window. Maybe we'll give it a second window. I always feel like Bob Ross when I'm drawing shit, like happy little house. So this real estate story takes place a handful of years after the car sales story. I'm in real estate. I've been in it for a couple of years. I'm already doing well. I'm making solid money. My average income at the time was around $20,000 per month. I'm having fun. I'm fucking around. I'm working like 20 hours a week, making bank. But then I get the opportunity, and I later get hired to become the coach to all the new agents at my brokerage, which there's over 40 of them. I think at the time there was like 65 different agents. And I realized something. I'm like, oh shit, I'm about to be teaching people how to be successful in real estate. I need to step up and be a better example. I need to embody what I'm teaching and quit fucking around so much and go all in. So I made a decision. I was going to use the same principle I used back in car sales to completely level up my production. But here's the key. I didn't just set a goal to make more money. That's not how the mirror principle works. I shifted my identity first. I started to see myself as someone who consistently produces over $50,000 a month. Not as a goal, but just who I am. Just the cost of doing business, so to speak. Just another day in the week or something. I started to think like that person. I made decisions like that person. I carried myself like that person. Same thing as back in car sales. I showed up on time. I started dressing different. I was hyping myself up in my car every day before work. I would visualize myself checking my bank account and just seeing fat checks hitting my bank. I would feel the satisfaction of crushing production records, getting awards in advance, and I would embody the energy of someone operating at that level. And again, I would then show up to work from that new state. And here's what happened. My production doubled literally overnight. For all you fuckers who keep on questioning this, there's some receipts, baby. There's an award I got, a little piece of paper from my old real estate office. And again, my production doubled, not because I learned some new sales technique. Like, this is like very fast. It's like in a month. It's not like I took 6 months for training or some shit. The market didn't change. It's not because I suddenly got lucky. It's because I changed who I was on the inside. And then guess what? Because of the mirror principle, the external results had to match. Within a few months of embodying this new identity, I showed you the receipts, I made $91,344 in a single month. In fact, I'm looking at the other awards I have here. In March of that year, I earned $27,884. April, I made a little bit over $30,000. And in May, $91,344. In June, $45,077. So as you can see, from $20,000 a month-ish on average, I'm fucking cranking now. Honestly, this shit is insane, and it was insane in both of my stories, whether it's when I crushed it in car sales or in real estate. The mirror principle each time was simply reflecting me back to myself. And by the way, if you want to learn more about how to master the mirror principle and how to shift your identity so you can create the results that you want in life and work, you can check out my free community in the description. And if you'd like my help with shifting your identity, stopping self-sabotage, and beginning to earn $10,000 to $100,000 a month doing what you love, you can work with me for less than the cost of a cup of coffee. Learn more about that in the description, my friend. For those of you that join, cheers. I'll see you on the inside. Check out my dad coffee cup. It's badass. So now I want to break down the mirror principle a little bit more, again, from this psychology and also the mystical perspective. So first, psychology. When you shift your self-image or your identity and you change your internal state, you activate and change something called your reticular activating system, also known as RAS. And that's the part of your brain that filters your perception of reality. So your reticular activating system determines what you notice, what opportunities you might see, and what ideas you have access to in your brain. If you see yourself as broke, or the world is hard, or whatever other bullshit, the reticular activating system filters for scarcity. You notice all the reasons you can't make money. But if you see yourself as abundant, your reticular activating system filters for abundance. You'll begin to notice opportunities everywhere. On top of that, your behavior automatically changes. So you don't have to try to change your habits and also the hard bullshit. You don't have to force yourself to act differently. You will naturally act in alignment with your self-image or your identity. So when I embodied this new version of me, this top salesperson, I naturally began to walk with more confidence. I spoke with more authority. I made bolder moves, not because I was trying to, but because it was who I was being. It was in alignment with who I thought of myself at that time. Now let's talk about this more mystical perspective. There's an energetic component here that modern science is just beginning to understand or validate, even though it's been known in ancient knowledge and wisdom forever. Your emotional and mental state creates a certain frequency, and we are constantly broadcasting that frequency into the quantum field, or whatever you want to call the formless substance of reality. So our energy is interacting with all the energy around us. And that signal we put out, that frequency or vibration, attracts all the things that match it back to us. So when you embody wealth consciousness and that energy, guess what? You attract wealth. When you embody success consciousness and energy, you attract more success. Not because of magic or manifestation, which again is just bringing the internal to the external, but because of energetic resonance. And it's like that saying, you do not attract what you want, you always attract who you are. And who you are is a combination of your identity and your internal state, also known as your frequency. The mirror doesn't give you what you want just because you want to change your hair color or some other bullshit. The mirror is always going to reflect to you what you are, what your current hair color is. I'm not going to look in the mirror and see blue hair because I have blonde hair. So I want to just teach you really quick, short and sweet, how do you actually use the mirror principle to change your results? So step one is identify. So step one could also be known as awareness. You want to identify your current reflection. So look at your external results, your life right now, your income, your relationships, your health, your opportunities, all the other shit, and ask yourself, what is this showing me about my internal state? And the trick is not to judge it, just observe it, take inventory. So if you're making $3,000 a month, you currently hold a $3,000 a month identity and internal state. If you're struggling to find clients, you currently hold an identity of someone who struggles to find clients or opportunity. The mirror is always showing you back to yourself and who you are being internally. So once you identify, in other words, you become aware, step two is decide. And decide could also be like align, right? You basically want to decide who you need to become. What results do you want? What person has the results that you want? How do they show up internally? How do they see themselves? What results do you want? What does the person who has those results look like or operate like internally? How do they see themselves? How do they feel? How do they think? How do they carry themselves? What kind of behavior do they have? And what do they believe about themselves and reality as a whole? Get specific about this new identity and then decide to begin to align and operate as that identity. Step 3 is embody. So you want to embody this new identity right now. And this is the key. You don't wait to feel successful until you already have success. You feel successful now. You feel accomplished now. And guess what? Accomplishments will follow. You don't wait to feel abundant until you have money. You step into that abundant state now, and guess what? Money follows. Start thinking, feeling, and acting as this new version of yourself immediately. And then step 4 is act. And this is the part that most people who talk about manifestation like to avoid. It's not just about visualizing or changing your emotions or whatever. You have to take action. We're in the physical world. You're not just like this ethereal being. Cause and effect exists in this realm, which means you have to take action. So that means make decisions from this new identity. Take the actions that identity would. Speak from that identity. Change your wardrobe. Change all the shit you need to align with this new version of you and behave like them. Ask yourself, what would my higher self, what would my higher self do about this thing? What did my higher self decide about this thing? Like I try to put myself in that place now and then act in accordance with it. Because again, the external world will have no choice but to reflect this new internal state and identity back to you. And then step 5 is persist. This is really the key. Despite the contradictive evidence in your reality right now, you have to persist in this new embodiment, new action, new behavior, even if the results don't show yet. And honestly, this is where most people fail because they change their state like one time throughout the day or maybe a couple times a week or something. They practice this shit kind of half-heartedly, but they don't see immediate results. So then they just go back to the old ways. Stop. The mirror, you could say, reality has a little bit of a lag. It takes a minute for the external to catch up to the internal. You have to persist in this new identity, in this new internal state, even when the old results are still showing up. Trust that the mirror is adjusting. It always does. In fact, I like to think God or the universe has a sixth sense of humor, and there's kind of like this test. It's like, how much can you maintain this new frequency and identity, this new internal state? And as you practice that and basically commit to it regardless, shit's going to catch up and change. I'm seeing it happen in my own life right now. I saw it happen both times in this other story. Now it's your turn. So the takeaway from today's video is that the mirror principle is not just theory. It's not wishful thinking. It's not some law of attraction, fluffy bullshit. It's a fundamental principle of how reality actually works, backed by ancient wisdom, backed by modern science and psychology. Your external world will always reflect your internal world. Plain and simple. If you want different results, you have to become a different person and embody a new internal state first. Then the mirror has no choice but to reflect that back to you and show you that in your results. I went from struggling with money, having drug charges, to $10,000 plus months consistently by shifting my identity. Then I went from $10,000 months up to $91,000 in a single month by shifting my identity. Every time I've leveled up in my life, whether it was in business or bodybuilding or relationships or anything in between that, it first started with an internal shift, which led to the external change and result. So be sure to comment your takeaways down below. Subscribe if you found this video valuable or useful. Join my free community for identity shifting in the description. Or if you're an entrepreneur, creator, or salesperson, you can work with me and I'll teach you not only how to apply this mirror principle, but to shift your identity, stop self-sabotaging, so you can start earning $10,000 to $100,000 plus a month doing what you love. And the best part, it's all for less than the cost of a cup of coffee per day. We grab my little coffee cup. Cheers, my friend. I'll see you on the inside. Links are in the description. Change the inside and the outside will always follow. That's the mirror principle. And again, because of it, I made a shit ton of money. You can do the same. All right, family, much love, and I'll see you in the next one.